Forgiveness is a coffin, polished and empty. They wanted me buried inside it, quiet, regretful, forgotten. But I refused the funeral. I chose to rise, not as a saint clawing for mercy, but as the heresy they prayed would never breathe. My scars are scripture, my hunger, the gospel, my defiance, the altar. I don't carry sins, I wear them as armor. Every whisper of my name shakes their illusions of safety. I am not here to be forgiven, I am here to be feared. If you carry scars instead of apologies, subscribe. This kingdom is built for you. I wasn't born into darkness. It wasn't in my blood. It wasn't tattooed on my skin at birth. But the world had a way of crafting monsters when it grew bored of its victims. As a child, I believed in the fairy tale that goodness mattered, that kindness was a currency the world respected. I was wrong. I learned quickly that kindness isn't strength, it's bait. And predators hunt bait. The first betrayal didn't come from strangers, it came from blood. Family, those who were supposed to shield you, were the first to slice open your chest and laugh while you bled. Their words were daggers sharper than knives, tearing confidence before it could breathe. Every failure was magnified, every weakness mocked. They built me, but only so they could break me. I remember the look in their eyes when they laughed at my dreams. That laughter is still louder than any applause I've ever heard. Laughter isn't always joy, sometimes it's cruelty dressed as amusement. And I carried that sound like a curse stitched into my veins. School didn't save me, it sharpened the blade further. Classrooms weren't places of learning, they were hunting grounds. If you were small, quiet, different, you were prey. I was prey, and predators can smell fear the way wolves smell blood. The bullies didn't just want to hurt, they wanted to carve humiliation so deep that even mirrors became enemies. Every shove against the locker wasn't just physical, it was a message. You don't belong here. You don't deserve to exist. That message lodged itself inside me like a splinter too deep to remove. And here's the truth. Once the world convinces you that you don't belong, you either break or you build yourself into something too dangerous to ignore. The nights were worse. Silence was not silence. It was a battlefield where the mind replayed every insult, every humiliation, every smirk of those who enjoyed watching me crumble. My bed wasn't rest. It was a coffin where dreams went to die. And in those sleepless nights, I realized something crucial. The world doesn't rescue you. The world doesn't care if you suffocate under the weight of your own despair. You either claw your way out or you rot in the soil of weakness. That was the night innocence died. The night the last flicker of naive hope burned out. I buried forgiveness alongside it. Because what is forgiveness? It's permission. Permission for others to hurt you again. Forgiveness is the leash that keeps the beaten dog crawling back to the hand that whipped it. I cut that leash with blood in my mouth and rage in my chest. I didn't want forgiveness. I wanted fire. The world called me weak, fragile, insignificant. Fine. But weakness has a breaking point, and when weakness breaks, it transforms. I started collecting the shards of myself, jagged and sharp. Every insult became a weapon. Every betrayal became fuel. Every humiliation became bricks to build the walls around my soul. Do you know what it feels like to starve, not for food, but for acknowledgement? To scream silently in crowded rooms, praying someone. Anyone will notice you're drowning. And when no one does, do you know what is born? Hunger? The kind of hunger that doesn't fade. The kind that can never be fed with applause or compliments. A hunger for power, for revenge, for control. That hunger was my first sin, and it tasted like survival. The transformation didn't happen in one night. It wasn't cinematic, it was slow, brutal, methodical. Each day added another scar. Each day stripped away another layer of softness, until the softness was gone and only steel remained. I stopped looking at people as saviors. I started looking at them as threats, obstacles, stepping stones. When you're pushed to the edge enough times, the fall doesn't scare you anymore, it excites you. And I was pushed so often that the abyss became home. People think monsters are born with fangs. No, monsters grow them, and every tooth is carved from pain. I became fluent in silence, not the silence of peace, but the silence of plotting. I stopped crying myself to sleep. I stopped waiting for justice. I stopped praying for someone to understand. My silence became a forge where anger was hammered into focus. I started studying my enemies, not out of fear but out of hunger. How they walked, how they manipulated, how they broke others. And I realized something dangerous. They weren't strong. They weren't gods. They were cowards with louder voices. They survived on the weakness of others. And the moment I stopped being weak, the moment I stopped forgiving, I became their nightmare. The child they mocked was gone. The prey they circled had vanished. What stood in its place was something darker, sharper, hungrier. I didn't want their love anymore. I didn't need their approval. What I needed was the satisfaction of watching their laughter choke in their throats. The birth of sin isn't a choice, it's a reaction. It's the inevitable answer when the world teaches you that mercy is suicide, that kindness is exploitation, that hope is a lie. Sin is survival painted in shadows. So when they ask me now, why don't you forgive? Why don't you let go? I laugh, because they don't understand that forgiveness never saved me. What saved me was becoming what they feared, becoming the sin that could not be mocked, could not be humiliated, could not be broken. That was my birth, not into life, but into war. And the war hasn't ended. Because the truth is, I don't want peace. Peace is fragile, temporary, an illusion. I want power. I want control. I want to be the storm that no one can silence. And it all began here, in the ashes of a childhood where forgiveness was buried and sin was born. Betrayal is not an accident. It's a slow cut delivered by hands you once trusted. It isn't the stranger who ruins you. It's the ones who swore they never would. Betrayal is a poison, and once it enters your bloodstream, you are never the same. It doesn't kill you immediately. It corrodes. It spreads. It rewires the way you see the world, the way you breathe, the way you speak to yourself in the silence of the night. I remember when I still believed in loyalty. I thought friends were pillars. I thought promises carried weight. But loyalty is only true until it is tested, and promises are only as strong as the hunger behind them. One by one, the faces I trusted revealed themselves. Each smile was a mask stretched thin over fangs. They didn't stab me because they had to. They stabbed me because betrayal is easier than commitment. It costs nothing to walk away, and it costs nothing to sell out someone who would have died for you. The first betrayal cracked something in me, but it didn't destroy me. It taught me. The second one shattered every illusion. I realized then, betrayal is not rare. It's the default setting of the weak. Weak people will always betray you because weakness cannot sustain loyalty. Weakness cannot carry weight. Weakness always collapses under pressure, and when it does, it drags you down with it if you're foolish enough to hold on. Friends I would have bled for vanished when I needed them most. They spoke my secrets in rooms I couldn't enter. They turned my pain into their laughter. Betrayal doesn't always come with a blade. Sometimes it comes with silence. Sometimes it's the absence of a call when you're drowning. Sometimes it's watching the people you fed cheer for the ones who starve you. And the worst betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the hands you kissed, the hearts you carried, the shoulders you leaned on. I learned betrayal isn't random, it's strategy. People calculate when it's convenient to switch sides. They stay close while you have value, but the moment your struggle outweighs your usefulness, they let go. They never cared about you. They cared about what you provided. The moment your hands are empty, they leave you standing in ruins. That's the poison. It teaches you that love was never love. It was transaction. It was an exchange that expired as soon as your worth to them did. There was a woman once. I thought she saw me. I thought she saw past the chaos, past the scars, into something worth saving. But love is another weapon. She whispered loyalty in my ear while rehearsing betrayal in her heart. She spoke about forever with a tongue that had already kissed my replacement. She left not because she had to, but because betrayal thrilled her. Some people are addicted to destroying what loves them. It makes them feel powerful. That betrayal didn't just scar me. It carved me open and forced me to realize forgiveness is nothing but an invitation for them to do it again. And then came society, the collective betrayal. The kind where you realize the system itself is designed to watch you bleed. The teachers who told you to dream, then mocked you when you reached for it. The bosses who preach loyalty while planning your replacement. The world claps when you fall because your failure entertains them. Betrayal is not personal, it's cultural. The world is built on betrayal disguised as progress. But here's the twist. Betrayal is also freedom. When they betrayed me, they freed me from illusion. They freed me from believing that love meant safety, that friendship meant security, that society owed me fairness. Betrayal burned away the lies. It stripped me naked in front of reality. And in that brutal exposure, I found something indestructible. I found myself. You see, betrayal is poison, but poison in the right body becomes fuel. It became the spark that hardened me. Every betrayal made me sharper, colder, less forgiving. I learned to stop expecting loyalty from cowards. I stopped begging for honesty from liars. I stopped thinking anyone would save me. That poison became a cure against weakness. It killed the version of me that depended on others, and it birthed the one who depends on nothing. The faces that betrayed me still smile somewhere, pretending their hands are clean. But I carry their poison like armor. Their betrayal taught me to see patterns. I can now smell dishonesty before it speaks. I can see the tremor in the eyes of someone rehearsing betrayal. I can hear the hesitation in their voice when their loyalty is slipping. Betrayal gave me vision. The poison sharpened my senses. It turned me into a predator in a world of sheep who bite each other when the wolves come. And make no mistake, I don't hate those who betrayed me. Hatred is still a connection, still a chain binding me to them. No, betrayal taught me indifference. They are ghosts in my story. Their names hold no weight anymore. They thought betrayal would weaken me, but it turned me into a storm. They thought leaving me broken would end me, but it carved me into something they could never survive standing against. There is no forgiveness here. Forgiveness is for those who still believe in innocence. I don't. I know better. Every smiling face is a mask. Every promise is temporary. Every love is conditional. And that's not tragedy, it's power. Because once you accept betrayal as the rule, you stop bleeding when it comes. You expect it, you prepare for it, you weaponize it. And then when they betray you, you rise with fire in your eyes and ash in your hands. The poison of betrayal taught me the truth. Loyalty is not given, it's proven in war. And most people will never make it past the first battle. So I carry my poison proudly. It's the blood in my veins. It's the fire in my breath. And when they see me now, when they hear my name whispered like a warning, they know betrayal created me. The poison didn't kill me. It built me. And that's why I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't seek peace. I don't kneel before the false gods of loyalty and trust. I became the sin born of betrayal. And now I am the poison they fear. There comes a point when pain stops being pain. It mutates. It liquefies and starts to flow through your bloodstream until it becomes something more permanent than blood itself. It becomes fire. Every breath tastes like iron and ash. Every thought rattles like chains. And every waking second is an itch that can't be scratched. Unless you sharpen yourself against the whetstone of suffering. The nights are the longest. The silence isn't silence at all. It's a courtroom. 1,000 voices hammering you with the same verdict. You're nothing. They list the evidence, the rejections, the failures, the betrayals. They laugh with the sound of your past, the echoes of those who saw you bleed and enjoyed it. But somewhere in that avalanche of noise, you begin to listen differently. You stop arguing with the voices. You stop begging for them to be wrong. Instead, you start feeding them. Each insult is coal. Each memory of loss is gasoline. And soon enough, you stop hearing their mockery. You only feel the fire they're pouring into your veins. That's the shift. That's where the ordinary man breaks, but you refuse to. You take the glass they threw at your feet, grind it into dust and swallow it. You take the poison they slipped into your cup and turn it into your antidote. You build resistance, not the kind that shields you, but the kind that hardens you into a weapon. So you begin the ritual, not a holy ritual, not the kind with prayers and incense, a darker one made of repetition, blood, and solitude. You drag yourself to the edge of collapse and stand there until collapse becomes a choice you no longer allow. Muscles tear, lungs burn, bones ache, but you stay. Because pain, unlike comfort, never lies. Comfort whispers that you've done enough. Pain tells you how much further there is to go. You choose pain because only pain has ever been honest with you. In those hours, when sweat stings like acid and your hands tremble from exhaustion, you feel alive. Not happy. Alive. Happiness is an illusion sold by the same people who abandoned you. Aliveness is a different currency. It's earned only through scars. You discover that your body can be trained to accept anything. Hunger sharpens focus. Cold toughens resolve. Exhaustion teaches discipline. And each time you survive, you add another brick to the fortress of your will. The mind, however, is the true battlefield. The body is easy. It follows orders. But the mind rebels. It wants to quit. It wants comfort, distraction, mercy. You give it nothing. You lock yourself in a room with your demons and refuse to leave until you're the one walking out alive. Every failure replays like a broken film reel. Every humiliation reopens with surgical precision. You don't turn away. You watch. You endure. You dissect. The weak try to forget their wounds. You study yours until they become maps of where you refuse to return. Rage becomes a strange companion. Not blind rage, not reckless fire. A focused rage. It teaches you to harness energy that most people waste on tears. It's a voltage that can power an empire if directed correctly. You realize anger is not your enemy. It is your inheritance. Every time someone tried to bury you, they planted seeds of fury. Now that fury sprouts like iron roots beneath your skin, unbreakable, unstoppable. And in this furnace, you begin to notice something terrifying. You're changing. The old self, the one who begged for approval, who flinched at rejection, who prayed for forgiveness, is gone. What grows in its place is colder, sharper, more deliberate. You don't speak much anymore because words are wasted on those who never listened. Instead, you let silence carry the weight of your transformation. People can sense it. They look at you differently, uneasy, as if something inside you is burning too hot to touch. Isolation becomes not a prison but a forge. Loneliness no longer feels like abandonment. It feels like clarity. Without the noise of others, you hear the rhythm of your own pulse, steady, violent, alive. You train when no one is watching. You build when no one believes. You suffer without applause because you've learned that applause is just another leash. The fire in your veins is no performance, it's survival. You stop fearing failure, not because failure disappears, but because you've drowned in it so many times that it no longer scares you. It baptizes you instead. Failure is the ocean, and you've grown gills. You dive deeper each time, unafraid of the dark. Others gasp for air. You thrive in the depths. That's what separates you now. They avoid failure like it's death. You chase it, tear it apart, swallow it whole, until failure itself grows afraid of you. The hunger never ends. It's not the hunger for food, money, or recognition. It's the hunger to keep the fire alive. Because once you've felt it, once you've tasted what it's like to turn agony into fuel, there's no going back. You'd rather burn than go cold again. Comfort feels like suffocation now. Pleasure feels like poison. Only the struggle keeps you breathing, because only the struggle keeps the fire alive. And in that fire, you realize something else. You are not chasing revenge anymore. Revenge is too small, too temporary. What you are building is bigger. You're forging yourself into a symbol, a testament that nothing, betrayal, humiliation, rejection, nothing can kill you if you refuse to stay dead. They wanted you broken. Instead, you became the storm. They wanted you quiet. Instead, you became the thunder that shakes their fragile world. You are no longer the one who suffers. You are the one who endures. You are no longer the one begging. You are the one becoming. Every scar is proof. Every sleepless night a verse in your gospel. Every drop of sweat a declaration. You are not waiting for permission to rise. You are rising because burning is the only language your blood understands now. This is fire in the veins. It is not a phase, not a feeling, not a temporary outburst. It is permanent. It is the evolution of someone who has been stripped of everything except will. It is the birth of a creature that refuses to die quietly. It is the ignition of a force that no forgiveness, no apology, no excuse can ever extinguish. The fire doesn't ask for peace. It doesn't want calm. It only knows one command: burn hotter. And so you do. Hell doesn't wait until you're dead. It starts early, disguised as life. You wake up every day carrying weight no one else sees. The roof that leaks, the fridge that's empty, the bank account that mocks you with zeros. You learn quickly that survival isn't noble. It's ugly, it's bitter, and it grinds you until there's nothing left but bone and rage. People talk about hitting rock bottom. That's a lie. There is no bottom. There's always another layer of hell waiting when you think you can't sink further. Hell is the silence at 3 a.m., when you're wide awake staring at the ceiling, realizing no one's coming to save you. The world is asleep, but you're fighting shadows that chew on your mind. Every mistake you made loops on repeat. Every face that spat in your direction flashes before your eyes. You want to scream, but even your voice has abandoned you. That's hell, not fire, not demons, but being forced to live with yourself when every part of you feels broken. Hell is poverty, not just of money, but of dignity. Walking into a store, counting coins in your pocket, knowing the cashier is watching, judging, already labeling you as worthless. Wearing the same shoes until the soles collapse, pretending you don't notice people laughing behind your back. Poverty teaches you quickly that society doesn't hate you because of who you are. It hates you because you remind them of what they fear becoming. Weak, desperate, replaceable. You are the living embodiment of their nightmares, so they mock you to make themselves feel safe. That is hell. But the cruelest part of hell is loneliness. You can survive without food for days. You can survive cold nights with nothing but a thin blanket, but loneliness eats you alive from the inside. The people you trusted vanish when the storm hits. The ones who promised to stand with you suddenly forget your number. Loneliness isn't being alone in a room. It's being surrounded by people who smile at you, but wouldn't notice if you disappeared. It's being a ghost while you're still breathing. When you walk through hell, you notice something. Mercy doesn't exist there. Nobody feels sorry for you. Nobody hands you a lifeline. The world steps over your body like it's nothing but trash on the street. And here lies the choice. The only real choice you'll ever have. You can break and let hell consume you, or you can burn everything in return. I chose fire. I chose to let the flames eat me whole until I was unrecognizable. Pain hardened me. Every sleepless night carved steel into my bones. Every betrayal stitched leather over my heart. Hell became my training ground. Where others begged for escape, I adapted. I learned to smile at the fire, to let the smoke fill my lungs, to laugh while drowning. When you stop fearing hell, you start mastering it. Walking through hell strips away illusions. You stop believing in love stories, in loyalty, in saviors. You realize nobody owes you anything. That's the freedom hell gives, the brutal, violent truth. It hurts, but it's pure. There's no sugarcoating, no false promises. Hell whispers, no one is coming, stand up yourself. And that's the moment the chains snap. Because once you understand no rescue is coming, you stop waiting, you start building, you start clawing. You start killing the weak version of yourself that begged for mercy. And in that execution, you're reborn. Hell teaches you that pity is poison. Tears don't feed you. Hope doesn't keep you warm. Only action does. Only rage that turns into discipline. Only hunger that turns into movement. Only scars that remind you never to trust softness again. Hell shapes you into a creature that doesn't break because breaking is no longer an option. When your world has already collapsed, what else can you lose? Fear dies in hell. And once fear is dead, so are your limits. I didn't crawl out of hell. I built a throne inside it. While others tried to escape, I studied its flames. I learned how to bend them, how to let them sharpen me. The chains that once dragged me down became my armor. The screams that haunted me became my anthem. People look at me now and ask why I don't forgive, why I don't soften, why I don't forget. Because they never walked through fire barefoot, carrying the corpses of dreams that burned away. They never learned that softness is a luxury. Forgiveness is a fairy tale told by people who never tasted the smoke of hell. I walk through hell every day still, because hell doesn't leave you. The memories, the scars, the hunger, they follow you everywhere. And I let them. They are my reminders, my fuel, my proof that I can't go back to who I was. I don't want paradise. I don't want peace. I want to stay in the fire because it keeps me sharp. It keeps me dangerous. It keeps me alive. Walking through hell taught me this. Pity is weakness, forgiveness is surrender, and survival is war. I carry my war with me, and if you stand in my way, you're not fighting a person. You're fighting hell itself, and hell never forgives. Forgiveness was never a gift. It was a leash, a word society used to pacify the broken, to convince them that mercy is noble. But I learned early, mercy is suicide. Every time I forgave, I gave another piece of myself to people who deserved nothing but my silence. Every time I let someone make peace with me, I felt the knife twist deeper. Forgiveness didn't heal me, it hollowed me out. Forgiveness is a trick. It doesn't erase the scars. It teaches others that they can cut you and walk away without consequence. The priest told me to forgive those who hurt me, but his hands trembled when I looked him in the eye. Even he knew forgiveness was cowardice. He preached peace because he never tasted blood in his mouth, never crawled out of betrayal naked and humiliated. Forgiveness was easy for men who never fought for their lives. I buried forgiveness the night I realized apologies are lies stitched together to cover intention. People don't stumble into cruelty. They choose it. They weigh your worth, decide you're disposable, and sharpen their smiles into blades. Then when the dust settles, they whisper, "Sorry," like it erases the venom. But I saw through it. Apologies are weapons. They reset the game so they can hurt you again. Forgiveness is the door that invites the executioner back inside. I killed that door. From then on, every wound carved into me was logged, not erased. I carried the memories like currency. The man who laughed at my failure, the woman who used me as a stepping stone, the friend who vanished when knives were pressed to my throat. I kept them all in a ledger, not because I couldn't move on, but because I refused to let them breathe without knowing. One day, I would come for what they owed. Forgiveness makes you weak because it convinces you to forget. But scars are maps, and I don't burn maps. I trace every line until I know exactly where to strike back. They told me forgiveness sets you free. That's a lie too. Forgiveness cages you in the role of the victim. Forever, the one who suffered. Forever, the one who lets others escape. I set myself free the moment I stopped forgiving. The moment I cut mercy from my bones and replaced it with iron. I remember a night when a man who wronged me years ago approached, his voice dripping with false regret. He wanted absolution. He wanted me to tell him his betrayal was washed away. His eyes searched mine for softness. Instead, I gave him silence. I let him choke on it. I watched his body shift, uneasy, because silence is heavier than violence. Forgiveness would have comforted him. My refusal to speak crushed him. That was the night I learned the absence of forgiveness is sharper than revenge. It is the weight people can never put down. Forgiveness died in me when I realized it keeps the guilty clean while drowning the wounded. They get peace. You get chains. They smile, unburdened. You carry their sins like a grave strapped to your chest. I cut the straps. Their sins are theirs. Their blood is theirs. I will not lighten their load with my mercy. You may call it cruelty. I call it balance. The world doesn't need saints, it needs consequences. When forgiveness dies, consequences are born. People behave differently when they know mercy doesn't exist. When they know once they cross you, there is no return. That fear is the foundation of respect, and respect is stronger than forgiveness will ever be. I have seen men who live on their knees, forgiving everything, smiling through betrayal, bending under the weight of disrespect. They tell themselves they are better men. But look closer. See the cracks in their eyes. They rot from inside, gnawed by unspoken rage, eaten alive by every humiliation they swallowed in the name of peace. They die forgotten, applauded by no one. Not me. I carried no illusions about people, no delusions about loyalty, no fantasies about healing. I became a ledger of debts and a hammer of judgment. I carried myself differently. Not as prey searching for understanding, but as predator waiting for opportunity. People sensed it. They stepped lighter around me, avoided lies they once told so easily. Forgiveness made me invisible. The death of forgiveness made me undeniable. Understand this, forgiveness is not noble. It's negotiation. It tells your enemy, I'll let you hurt me as long as you ask nicely after. But I am not in the business of negotiations. I am in the business of permanence. Every scar stays, every betrayal counts, every debt remains unpaid until I decide otherwise. That is my scripture. That is my faith. I am not reckless. I do not strike blindly. The death of forgiveness doesn't mean chaos. It means clarity. It means I no longer waste time rationalizing their motives, no longer soften the edges of cruelty with excuses. I see people as they are, not as I want them to be, and I act accordingly. My memory is sharper than any blade. My silence is heavier than any grave. My refusal to forgive is my empire. Some beg me to reconsider. They call forgiveness freedom. They say hatred changed the soul. They do not understand. I do not hate. Hatred is still a tie, still an acknowledgement of their power. I do not hate them. I erase them. Forgiveness would keep them in my story. Erasure gives me back the pen. The world preaches forgiveness because it fears men like me. Men who refuse to kneel, who refuse to absolve, who refuse to let sin be brushed away with words. Forgiveness makes the world safe for villains. My refusal makes the world dangerous for them. And I like it dangerous. So hear this: if you wrong me, there is no path back. No prayer, no apology, no plea will cleanse your name in my book. Forgiveness is dead. I killed it with my own hands. And in its grave, I planted something stronger: retribution. I don't need forgiveness. I don't give it. And that makes me the sin they fear. They told me sin was weakness. They told me sin was a curse. But I learned something they'll never admit. Sin is a tool, a weapon sharper than any blade, if you know how to hold it without cutting yourself. The ones who preach purity are the same ones hiding filth in the shadows. They call you a sinner to chain you, to keep you crawling in guilt while they sit on thrones built on blood and lies. I stopped kneeling to their rules the day I realized this. Sin is not what breaks you. Sin is what frees you. Greed, they told me it destroys men. But what is greed except hunger? Hunger for more, hunger for power, hunger for a life beyond scraps. They wanted me content with crumbs, satisfied with breathing, grateful just to exist in their system of chains. But I sharpened greed into ambition. I refused to starve politely. I wanted more than they said I deserved. And when greed mixed with discipline, it became a fire they couldn't extinguish. Greed gave me the audacity to demand more than survival. It made me build. It made me conquer. Wrath. They called it destructive. They told me anger eats the soul. But they never told you the truth. Wrath, when harnessed, is precision. Wrath is clarity. Wrath is the blade in the hand of the one who has had enough. I stopped wasting wrath on screaming. I fed it into silence, into focus. I turned every insult, every betrayal into fuel. Wrath doesn't need to shout. It needs to strike. And when it does, there's no second chance for the one on the receiving end. Wrath taught me patience. Wrath taught me control. Envy. They told me it poisons hearts. But envy is a mirror. Envy shows you what you crave, what you were denied. They told me not to look at the ones above me, not to measure myself against kings and monsters. But envy forced me to. Envy taught me what I lacked, what I needed to steal, what I needed to become. I let envy guide me, not as chains, but as coordinates. It didn't poison me. It mapped the path to dominance. I didn't envy their thrones. I built mine higher. Pride. They told me pride comes before the fall. But what they never say is that without pride, you never rise at all. Pride is the refusal to crawl, even when crawling would be easier. Pride is standing bloody, beaten, and unbroken in the face of those who would rather you begged. Pride is the armor that shields you when the world tries to strip you bare. Pride is not arrogance, it is memory. It reminds you of who you are when the world tries to erase you. Without pride, I would have vanished. With it, I became unforgettable. Lust. They told me lust is animal, dangerous, corrosive. But lust is the raw reminder that you're alive. Lust isn't just flesh. It's hunger for experience, for taste, for life in its most brutal, intoxicating form. Lust is not only in bed, it's in conquest, in ambition, in devouring the world before it devours you. Lust gave me appetite. It made me chase without apology, take without guilt. Lust reminded me, I do not exist to be holy. I exist to burn. Gluttony. They told me gluttony is waste, overindulgence. But I learned gluttony is the refusal to settle for less. They tell you to eat just enough, to dream just enough, to want just enough to remain safe. But gluttony taught me excess effort, excess obsession. I didn't stop at good enough. I consumed knowledge, strength, opportunity. I became insatiable. Gluttony is not waste. It's rebellion against scarcity. And in a world that wanted me to starve, my hunger made me unstoppable. Sloth. They mocked sloth as laziness, but they didn't understand the weapon hidden in stillness. Sloth is strategy. Sloth is patience. Sloth is conserving energy when others burn themselves out. I let them run in circles, chasing illusions, exhausting themselves in the race for validation. While they drowned in busyness, I sharpened myself in silence. Stillness was not my weakness. It was the waiting room for my strike. And when I moved with purpose while they collapsed in fatigue. They call these sins, but sins are only chains to the ones too weak to wield them. They fear sin because sin makes you untouchable. Forgiveness bows to the rules of their gods, their laws, their systems. Sin ignores them. Sin rewrites them. When you embrace sin, you stop asking for permission to exist. You stop apologizing for your hunger, your rage, your ambition. You stop kneeling at the altar of purity and instead build your throne on the bones of those who worshipped it. I don't carry sin as shame. I wear it as armor. Every time they tried to guilt me into silence, I sharpened sin into a blade. Every time they told me to forgive, I let sin whisper, "Take everything." And I did. Do you know why they fear me? It's not because I sin. It's because I embody what they bury in themselves. They pretend they are pure, but their thoughts are soaked in the very darkness they condemn. They fear me because I dare to live in the open what they hide in shadows. I became their mirror, and they cannot stand to see themselves unmasked. I don't need forgiveness. Forgiveness is for those who want to crawl back into cages. I chose sin because sin is freedom. Sin is rebellion. Sin is the weapon they cannot strip from me. They can chain my body, but they will never chain my hunger, my wrath, my pride. Sin is evolution. Sin is transformation. I am not broken because of sin. I am built by it. They call it evil. I call it survival. They call it corruption. I call it clarity. They call me damned. I call myself inevitable. I became the sin they fear, and that fear is my throne. They thought the darkness would consume me. They believed I would vanish into silence, broken and forgotten. But silence is not weakness. Silence is where the monster learns to breathe. In that quiet, I became something far beyond human. I sharpened my mind into a blade, carved my soul into stone, and stitched my scars into armor. I did not simply survive. I evolved. When people look at you, they see only what they want to see. They saw my wounds, my failures, my losses. They saw desperation. They saw a fool to mock, a weakling to exploit. But while they laughed, I was studying. While they spread poison, I was drinking it until I was immune. While they celebrated their petty victories, I was building something inside me that no one could kill. They thought I was finished. They were wrong. I was just beginning. Every insult became steel in my spine. Every betrayal became fire in my veins. Every failure was not an ending, but a rehearsal for the real act. I learned that monsters are not born. They are built, brick by brick, from the rubble of dreams. And the moment I embraced what I was becoming, the world changed. They felt it before they saw it. The shift, the silence before thunder, the presence that made their laughter choke in their throats. They didn't know why, but suddenly they were afraid of me. Not because of what I had done, but because of what I had become. Power does not scream. It doesn't beg to be noticed. Power walks into a room, and the air changes. That is what I became, the storm they felt in their bones before the first drop of rain. I didn't need validation, applause, or approval. I needed only their fear, and I had it, not because I chased it, but because I embodied it. Fear is not an act. It's not a mask. It's the natural response when prey stands in front of a predator. I stopped speaking their language. Mercy, forgiveness, excuses, all those words belong to the weak. My vocabulary became survival, dominance, inevitability. I did not debate. I did not explain. I simply existed in a form they could not comprehend. They wanted me broken, begging, crawling. Instead, I stood over them, silent, unshaken, unmerciful. That silence was louder than any war cry. The rise of the monster isn't about destruction for its own sake. It's about transformation. I had walked through pain, betrayal, humiliation, and still I stood. That terrified them more than anything. They realized pain couldn't kill me, betrayal couldn't break me, loneliness couldn't hollow me out. I had consumed all of it, turned it into fuel, and built myself into something untouchable. They couldn't understand it. They still can't. How does someone crawl through the ashes and return as fire? How does someone who is beaten down return standing taller? That is what unsettles them. Monsters defy logic. Monsters shouldn't exist, yet here I am. I stopped chasing acceptance the day I realized power doesn't ask permission. Lions don't beg the sheep to recognize them. Darkness doesn't wait for candles to give it space. I became the embodiment of inevitability. People feel me before they hear me, and when they hear me, they know it's too late. You don't negotiate with the storm, you survive it, if you're lucky. The monster inside me demanded blood, but not the kind they expected, not mindless violence, not senseless rage. The blood I took was respect. The fear in their eyes was enough. The silence when I entered the room was enough. Watching them hesitate, stumble, rethink every word in my presence. That was my feast. That was my dominance. I didn't need to roar. My existence was enough to unmake them. Do you know what true power feels like? It's not in fists or weapons, it's in restraint. The ability to end someone and choosing not to, not because of mercy, but because you don't need to. Because their life, their opinion, their existence means nothing in comparison to your presence. That is the difference between a human and a monster. Humans fight for recognition. Monsters breathe it. I realized the rise of the monster was not about me anymore. It was about them. They created me. Their cruelty forged me. Their betrayal defined me. Their laughter lit the fire. And now they tremble before their own creation. Every step I take is a reminder of their failure. Every breath I draw is proof that they lost. The monster they feared is the reflection of their sins. They don't hate me for what I am. They hate me because I remind them of what they will never be. Monsters don't beg. Monsters don't bend. Monsters don't die. That's the truth they choke on when they see me. They know deep down they could never endure what I endure. They could never crawl through the same fires and come out alive. They would have broken. They would have begged. They would have vanished. But I didn't. That's why they fear me. Because I proved them fragile. I exposed their weakness by existing. And let me be clear, this rise is permanent. Once you become the monster, there is no going back. I can't fit into their small world anymore. I don't belong to their games, their lies, their illusions. I am something else now, something outside their control. They tried to bury me, but I grew roots in the darkness. They tried to drown me, but I learned to breathe underwater. They tried to burn me, but I became the flame. You cannot stop what has already died and been reborn. I don't need their fear to live. I don't need their respect to breathe. But they will give it anyway, because when the monster rises, the world remembers. Not through stories of kindness or mercy, but through scars, through silence, through the unshakable truth that some things can't be broken. I am that truth. I am that scar. I am that silence. The rise of the monster is not about revenge. It's not even about power. It's about becoming untouchable in a world that tried to break you. It's about being the nightmare they deserve. It's about walking through hell and returning with fire in your eyes, daring anyone to look too long. It's about knowing you will never kneel, never beg, never forgive. The monster rose, and the world will never sleep peacefully again. Legacy is not written in ink. Ink fades. Legacy is carved in blood, in bone, in the trembling of voices when your name is spoken. For too long, I watched others inherit thrones they never earned, born into power, dressed in crowns that weighed nothing. They thought lineage was enough. They thought privilege made them untouchable, but I discovered the truth. Nothing is untouchable when you've bled enough to kill mercy inside you. I never asked for a seat at their table. I burned the table. I built my own, carved from the skeletons of those who laughed when I starved. My empire did not rise from invitations, it rose from ashes. Every humiliation I endured became brick and mortar. Every betrayal was another stone in my fortress. I forged a dynasty, not with forgiveness, not with acceptance, but with fire. Power does not speak in apologies, it speaks in sacrifices. Some offer gold, some offer prayers, some offer empty promises. I offered blood, my own first, then theirs. The nights I bled in silence, fists torn, bones fractured, lungs begging for air. Those nights were my down payments. The world mistook suffering for weakness. They never understood that pain is not debt, it's investment. Every scar became an account, compounding with interest. And when the time came to collect, I collected with interest too. They thought revenge was a single strike. They didn't understand. Revenge is generational. It doesn't stop with one blow. It ripples. It infects. It carries forward. I look back at the generations before me. People who bowed, who begged, who believed forgiveness was noble. And what did they gain? Chains, poverty, silence. They taught me patience, humility, and suffering as if they were virtues. They passed down survival as if it was a gift. But I rejected their inheritance. Survival is not enough. To survive is to scrape, to crawl, to feed off the crumbs others drop. I refused that legacy. I broke the cycle. I was not born to inherit silence. I was born to weaponize it. My bloodline ended with me, because weakness dies when it meets a wall of fire. I didn't pass on forgiveness. I passed on fear. Fear teaches faster than pity. Fear lasts longer than compassion. They say leaders inspire. They say greatness uplifts. Lies. Inspiration fades when hunger sets in. Motivation dies in the cold. But fear survives storms, hunger, and time. Fear carves its lessons deep. I did not build an army with hope. I built it with terror. They didn't follow me because they loved me. They followed because disobedience meant pain. And pain is the purest teacher. My enemies wanted forgiveness. My followers wanted mercy. They received neither. What they got instead was clarity. Clarity that strength commands and weakness dies. Fear became my language, and every action translated it perfectly. A hand raised against me became a corpse. A whisper of betrayal became a silenced tongue. Mercy was absent, but order was absolute, and order breeds legacy stronger than love ever could. My empire does not glitter with gold. It bleeds with memory. Its walls are built with discipline, its foundations in sacrifice, and its throne forged in sleepless nights of rage. Others inherit palaces. I erected mine on suffering. When people look at me, they don't see wealth. They don't see privilege. They see inevitability. They see the embodiment of scars that refuse to fade. My enemies know this. Even if they kill me, they cannot erase me. My scars echo in every soul I've broken. My legacy does not live in statues or songs. It lives in nightmares. Scars are immortal. You cannot kill them. You cannot burn them. You cannot forgive them away. They remain, and so do I. I am not content with personal revenge. That is too small, too shallow. My enemies will never rest, because I do not aim at them alone. I aim at their bloodlines. Their children will inherit their fear. Their grandchildren will inherit their silence. When they speak my name, they will taste iron on their tongue. That is legacy, when your enemies cannot imagine a world beyond your shadow. And for those who follow me, they inherit fire, not forgiveness. They inherit the truth I carved into existence. That power is never given. It is stolen, it is seized, it is ripped from the throats of those who guard it. I do not need crowds chanting my name. I do not need applause or parades. I need silence, the kind of silence where no one dares to speak against me, where mothers warn their children, do not cross that path. That is where his shadow lingers, where enemies sit at tables and say, we do not forgive him, we fear him, and that fear keeps us alive. That is how I know I've won. Legacy is not worship. Legacy is not forgiveness. Legacy is survival through terror. Everything I have is soaked in blood. My hands are not clean, they are drenched. My victories are not noble, they are savage. My power is not admired, it is feared. And I would not trade it for anything. Because in this world, the purest proof of existence is destruction. Some will call me cursed, some will call me damned, but let them speak. Even damnation is a kind of immortality. They will be forgotten, I will not. Their purity will dissolve into dust, but my sins will echo. When I die, they will not write prayers. They will not write forgiveness. They will not write redemption. They will write warnings. They will write stories that drip venom and caution. Children will grow with my name as a shadow over their beds. My enemies will die with their last breath cursing me. That is the point. I do not want peace. I want presence. Eternal, undeniable presence. My scars became my empire. My blood became my scripture. My legacy is carved in fear, and fear never dies. I am not the product of forgiveness. I am the monument of vengeance. My bloodline is not mercy, it is fire. And long after my body rots, they will still whisper my name, not with love, not with forgiveness, but with trembling lips soaked in fear. That is legacy. That is eternity. They don't fear my strength. They never did. Strength can be measured, challenged, broken. Muscles can be torn. Weapons can be seized, and numbers can overwhelm a single man. But what they fear, what makes them shiver even when my shadow isn't near, is that I no longer play by their rules. I am not bound by forgiveness. I am not tethered by mercy, and I am not crippled by guilt. They fear me because I carry nothing they can use against me. Strip me of everything, home, wealth, name, and I will still rise from the dirt smiling with blood between my teeth. They built systems to keep men obedient. Religion, law, morality. Chains disguised as virtues. Forgive your enemy, they say. Turn the other cheek, they say. But when I stopped listening, when I broke those chains, I became something they could never predict. Chaos that learned discipline. I used to believe their lies. That forgiveness was strength. That humility was noble. That patience was a virtue. But those words only kept me docile, while they sharpened their knives behind my back. Forgiveness is the leash, the strong place on the weak. And I cut mine a long time ago. Now, when they see me, they see the truth. They've spent their whole lives hiding from themselves. Humanity isn't driven by love. It's driven by fear. Fear governs nations. Fear builds armies. Fear fuels empires. And I alone became fear incarnate. They don't fear my fists. They fear my indifference. Because the man who cannot be guilt-tripped, cannot be manipulated, cannot be softened by sentiment, that man is untouchable. I remember the first time I saw it in their eyes, that split second where arrogance curdled into terror. They laughed when I was broken, but when I stood back up, when I smiled through the pain, their laughter cracked. They realized then I wasn't trying to be saved. I wasn't trying to be loved. I wasn't even trying to win. I was trying to become something they couldn't kill. That is what they fear, not a man, not flesh and blood, but the living embodiment of their sins, walking free, unapologetic, and stronger than their saints. They taught me wrath was evil, so I sharpened it until it became my discipline. They said envy corrodes, so I molded it into fuel, chasing everything they said I couldn't have. They said pride comes before the fall, yet my pride built me higher than their castles of lies. They tried to bury sin, but sin was never meant to be buried. It was meant to evolve. I evolved. Now every room I enter, silence follows me like a loyal hound. Not because they respect me, but because they don't know what I will do. Predictability is their comfort. I stripped that away. I became the unspoken reminder that everything they built, their fragile civility, their brittle morals, can be torn apart in seconds if someone refuses to play their game. They pray to their gods for salvation. I became the reminder that gods never answered. They built prisons for sinners. I became the cell they couldn't lock. They wrote scriptures to shame us into obedience. I became the scripture they could never rewrite. And the more they feared, the stronger I became. Because fear isn't just survival, it's currency. I learned to spend it. I learned to earn it. I learned to wield it until their own nightmares bent the knee. I don't need forgiveness, because forgiveness is for those still waiting for approval. But approval is a leash. Forgiveness is a leash. Redemption is a leash. I don't wear collars anymore. Every scar I wear is not a wound. It's a warning. A story carved in the skin that says, this man walked through fire and didn't burn. And when they see those scars, they understand, consciously or not, that they will never match my threshold for pain. They will break long before I do. That is why they fear me. They fear me because I do not want what they want. I don't want peace. Peace is their fragile dream. I don't want acceptance. Acceptance is their negotiation with mediocrity. I don't want redemption. Redemption is their cowardly way of dressing weakness in holy words. What I want, they cannot give. What I take, they cannot stop. They sit in circles preaching about forgiveness, hoping to tame the wolves inside them. I let mine roam free. They wanted me to tame myself. Instead, I became a reminder of what happens when a wolf refuses a leash. They call it evil because it terrifies them. They call it sin because they can't control it. They call me dangerous because they know they can't survive me. The sin they fear isn't just me. It's themselves. It's the truth that everything they deny lives inside their own bones. They suppress it with prayers, laws, and distractions, but when they see me, it rises. Their envy awakens. Their wrath ignites. Their pride snarls. And for a moment, they see themselves in me. That's why they flinch. That's why they hate. That's why they fear. I didn't need forgiveness. I didn't even need revenge anymore. I became beyond revenge. Revenge implies I still care about the original wound, but I don't. My life is no longer a reaction to them. It's a declaration against them. I am not their victim, not their enemy, not even their judge. I am the proof that their rules were always lies. The day I embraced this, I became untouchable. Not immortal, not invincible, but untouchable in spirit. You can kill my body, but you cannot kill what I stand for. You can silence my voice, but my presence will echo in every fear you have left. Because when men realize forgiveness is a trick, when they understand mercy is a leash, when they see the strength in sin, they will follow. And that's the deepest fear of all. Not me alone, but me multiplied. The day one man refuses forgiveness, they call him dangerous. The day 10 refuse, they call it rebellion. The day 1,000 refuse, they call it war. That is what I am, not just sin, but the prophecy of their downfall, the reminder that no empire built on forgiveness can stand when fear becomes the foundation. So when they whisper my name, when they warn their children about me, when they gather in shadows praying I never come, understand this, I am already there, in their trembling, in their silence, in their fear. I don't need forgiveness. I don't need redemption. I am not waiting for heaven, and I am not afraid of hell. I am the sin they fear, and fear never dies. Redemption is the lie they sell to broken men, the fairy tale ending where the sinner drops to his knees, begs for mercy, and the world offers a warm embrace. That's their fantasy. That's how they tame beasts. Convince the wolf that he should regret his fangs. Convince the lion that his roar should soften. But I don't kneel. I don't weep. I don't beg. I was never built for redemption. Redemption is a cage dressed in silk. They offer it to the guilty so they can sleep at night, believing the world is balanced. But balance is a myth, and forgiveness is a chain. Every man who clings to forgiveness surrenders his edge. Every man who kneels in regret forfeits his crown. I spit on the idea of peace. Peace is nothing but the lull before a deeper war. Men who chase peace are men who lost their appetite for conquest. I will never be that man. I wasn't born to soften. I wasn't born to blend in with the obedient herd. I was born to carve my name into the stone of history with blood, not with apologies. You want redemption? Keep it. Frame it on your walls. Preach it to your children. I will burn it in the streets. I don't rebuild bridges. I blow them up so no coward can follow me. I don't ask for a second chance. I take the chance no one thought I deserved. Understand this, sin isn't a stain. It's a crown. They fear the man who does not shrink when branded with it. They fear the man who takes the title of sinner and twists it into a throne. They wanted me ashamed of the fire in my veins, ashamed of my hunger, ashamed of my darkness. Instead, I sharpened it into a blade and carved a kingdom. I don't want their forgiveness because forgiveness requires acceptance of guilt. And I am not guilty. I am inevitable. My scars are not evidence of crimes. They are evidence of wars survived. My sins are not mistakes. They are victories they could never achieve. My defiance is not rebellion. It is the natural law of the strong against the weak. Every civilization is built on sin. Blood on the bricks, bones under the marble. Kings were not crowned by kindness. They were crowned by conquest. Empires weren't forged by apologies. They were forged by fire. The same world that demonizes me is the same world built by men like me. They fear sin because they are too weak to wield it. But I carry it like armor. I swing it like a sword. When I walk into a room, I am not looking for forgiveness. I am calculating. I am measuring every man, every woman, every soul to see if they are tools, threats, or ghosts. Forgiveness makes you soft. I am sharpened steel. Forgiveness makes you blind. I see everything. Forgiveness keeps you chained to the past. I burn the past to ashes. My rule is not gentle. My rule is not merciful. Mercy is for those who can afford weakness. I cannot. I will not. The only currency I deal in is fear, respect, and inevitability. When I speak, silence follows because they know my words are not requests. They are sentences. They are laws. Redemption asks you to fold your fire into a candle. I refuse. My fire is not meant to warm. It is meant to burn forests, cities, dynasties. My voice is not meant for whispers of apology. It is meant to rattle glass, to make gods listen. My life is not a story of atonement. It is a weapon forged by betrayal, tempered by pain, and sharpened by wrath. I became the sin they feared because fear is more eternal than forgiveness. Forgiveness dies when memories fade. Fear lives forever. You don't remember the men who begged for redemption. You remember the men who burned kingdoms, the men who broke chains, the men who took what was forbidden. They wrote history not with ink, but with blood. That is where I belong. The weak hope for a better tomorrow. I build it by force. The weak dream of peace. I drag them through fire until they understand war is the only teacher. The weak seek forgiveness because they crave belonging. I stand alone, and that solitude is my empire. Do not confuse me for a man searching for meaning. I am meaning. My existence is proof that forgiveness is irrelevant when you have the strength to enforce your will. They can brand me villain, devil, sinner. It changes nothing. Their words do not break me. They build my legend. Because every whisper of my name carries weight. Every warning spoken about me sharpens my shadow. Redemption is not power. Rule is. Rule is the only thing worth chasing. Rule is the only thing worth bleeding for. Rule is the only language the world respects. Men forgive out of weakness. Men bow out of fear. I do not bow. I do not forgive. I do not forget. Let the world write prayers. Let them sing hymns. Let them beg their fragile gods for mercy. My throne is built on silence, on obedience, on the tremor in their hands when they meet my gaze. That is not redemption. That is rule. And when my time ends, when the earth takes back this flesh, they will not say I was forgiven. They will not say I was redeemed. They will say I ruled without compromise. They will say I became the sin they feared. They will say I walked into hell itself and made it my palace. I don't need forgiveness. I don't need peace. I don't need redemption. I only need one thing, to rule until every last voice that cursed my name is silenced beneath it. I will not kneel. I will not beg. I will not repent. I am not waiting for a heaven that will never come. I am building my kingdom in the ashes of theirs. No redemption, only rule.